We tried it.
Okay, geweldig. So we were at the Mishnah on Daf Samach Zayin. My favorite blot in every Masechta is Daf Samach Zayin, because it Simon says today was the yahrzeit of the Tosha Rebbe, Zecher Tzadik V'Kodesh L'Vracha. So I just wanted to share one little story about the Tosha Rebbe. A Yid once came to the Tosha Rebbe and was crying to him about all the tzores that he has. And he was crying to the Rebbe, ich weiß es, was der Abish hat mich fand. Ich weiß es, was der Abish hat titi alle Sachen zu mir. So the Tosha Rebbe sat him right near him, and he was mechaber him, and he was mechazik him. And then he had some tea, very hot tea, and the Tosha Rebbe spilled it on him. And he didn't say a word. So it's a chazegin, and as the Yid was leaving the Tosha Rebbe's office, the Tosha Rebbe asked him, Rabbi Yid, what were you thinking when I spilled the boiling hot tea all over you? He said, I figured if the Rebbe spilled it, the Mistumas had hoiche tavunis and groise cheshbonis. So he says, look at yourself. The Eibish the Alain, you're questioning why he does things. But little Tosha Rebbe spills tea on you and does versteist the up. So that was a lesson from the Tosha Rebbe. Okay, let's start the Mishnah on the third line of Daf Samach Zayin Amar Aleph. Zog the Heilige Mishnah. Hamoicher es a chotzer. Someone sells a chotzer. So he writes in the star, I'm selling you this chotzer. Now we'll see in the Gemara, there's different versions of what he actually wrote in the star. But for now, we'll say he wrote in the star, I'm selling you this chotzer. So the halacha is, it includes everything in the chotzer, or almost everything. Makar batim, boiros, shichin, ma'aros. Remember we said if you sell a guy a house, it doesn't include the boiros, shichin, and ma'aros. But if you sell a chotzer, it includes everything inside it. Ava loyas and metalton. Not metalton, which the Rashbam tells us is even metalton that are directly related to the house. Like the machteshes, if it's not connected, even that's going to be included when you sell a chotzer. But I'm sorry, that's not included. That would not be included when you sell a chotzer. But bisman she'omer loy hu v'chol masha b'soichai. So you used a redundant lotion and was highly inclusive. Then arei kulon mechurin. They all are included. Benkach ubenkach. No matter what you wrote, loy mocher, what's for sure not included, is esamerchatz. If there's a bathhouse on the premises, that's not included. Loy is beis abad. If there's an oil press on the premises, that wouldn't be included. Shabasoicha, that was within the chotzer. Rabbi Eliezer argues in the Tanakama, and he says, "Hamoicher sechotzer leimocher ela avira shel chotzer." It doesn't include the bayis, it doesn't include the buyers, it includes nothing. It just includes the flat land in the chotzer. Zok the heilige Gemara Tanur Rabbanan. Hamoicher sechotzer. If someone sells a chotzer, mochar botem achitzonim ubotem apnimiyim. What if we learned about these houses where you have to go through house A in order to get to house B? So only house A had a doorway to get directly into the chotzer. House B didn't. Nevertheless, the sale includes house A and house B. Uveis hacholsois. Rashi, the Rashbam says that's a house that has very soft sand in it, and that's valuable because you make glass out of that sand. That's the raw material to make glass. What if there's a little shop in this chotzer that's open to the chotzer, meaning only people of the chotzer would be buying from this store? Nimkaris ima. Those are all included in the sale of the chotzer. But what if there's a store, but it doesn't have an opening to the chotzer? It has an opening to the Rishus HaRabim, or to the Bava. That's a nimkaris ima. That is not included in the sale. But if it was psuchos lakan nimkarisim, if it was open both to the chotzer as well as to the Rishus HaRabim or the mavoi, that would be included in the sale of the chotzer. Rabbi Eliezer Eimer, hamoicher es a chotzer leimocher ela milusa shel chotzer, which is the same thing as avira shel chotzer. You're only selling the flat land of the chotzer. You're not selling any houses, any stores. Nothing is included. Oh my mark. So let's drill down a little bit and understand what the Bryce is teaching us. We said if you have a store that's open both to the chotzer as well as to the outside, nimkar isimo, that's included in the sale. Frank Gemara, we have a stira because Vatani Rabchia was quoted a brisa that says ein nimkar isimo, it's not included. Zakimar lekasha ha deroev tashmisayu legav. If most of the customers and most of the sales are to the people inside the chotzer, then even though it has an opening and it could access customers out of the chotzer, it's still included in the sale of the chotzer. But if most of the customers are on the outside of the chotzer, then this would not be included in the sale. Simple. Zogt a heilige Gemara weiter. Amar Rava. The Girsa in the Tziyonim changes it to Rava from Rabba. Amar Rava. Either Amar Lei Dirsa. What if you said, not I'm selling you my chotzer, I'm selling you my dirsa, which means dwelling. That clearly means I'm including the houses. So even Rabbi Eliezer, who says if I sell you my chotzer, I'm only including the flat land in the chotzer, not any structures. But if he said I'm selling you my dwelling, dirasa, even Rabbi Eliezer would agree that includes the houses. So when is Rabbi Eliezer arguing on the Chachamim? Domele Darto. Darto or dirasa, I'm not trying to pronounce it, it's actually the Targum word for chotzer. Like in Truma, when the Torah talks about the chotzer Mishkan, the Targum word is dirasa. So it means chotzer. But Lamaise, dirasa means dwelling. So that's where there's a machlokes Rabbi Eliezer and the Tanakama. Mar Sovar Tarbitza Mashma. One man holds it just means a flat land, which is Rabbi Eliezer. Mar Sovar and the Tanakama hold Boti Mashma, it means the houses. Zokter Ishbam. What if you actually said the word chotzer? If you actually said the word chotzer, kula al mamoida, that it doesn't include the bias. Zokter Ishbam. Based on that, we have to fetch a little bit in the Mishnah, because the Mishnah is a moichers a chotzer. Zokter Shbam, what it means is if you sell a chotzer, how do you sell a chotzer? By writing in the star, I'm selling dirasa. And if you wrote that in the star, I'm selling dirasa, which is the normal way to write in Aramaic a chotzer. There, Rabbi Eliezer holds you're only selling the flat land. The Tanakama holds you're selling all of the structures as well. But if you wrote chotzer mamish, everybody would agree that only the flat land is included, based on the lashon of the Gemara that we just read. But there's another lashon in the Gemara. We have an Ika de Amri. Ika de Amri. The Ika de Amri Amar Rava. Ida Amale Darsa. He said Darsa to Chula Amale Pligi de Bati Mashma. There as well, even Rabbi Eliezer would agree that includes the houses. Ki Pligi de Machlokes is the Amale Chotzer. Like the words in the Mishnah says. He wrote, I'm selling you my chotzer, using the word chotzer in the star. There, Marthav Chatzer Avira Mashma, which is Rabbi Eliezer, Umarsavar Kechatzar Mishkan. It's just like the Chatzar Mishkan included the dwelling, included the Mishkan. So too, when you say you're selling your Chatzer, you also include the houses in the Chatzer. What if you sold somebody two properties? One was very sandy property. That sand is what you could make into glass. Umatzula, by the edge of the river, the muddy area, which is a place where sometimes if you dig up, you'll find hidden treasures. What if you sold them these two types of properties? So you use them differently. You use the Chosei property in a different fashion that you would use the Metzula property. What if Hichsik B'Chosis? You made a Kinyan Chazak. So we're not talking about the 3 years of Raya. We're talking about the Kinyan Chazak. You made a Chazak in the Chosis place. You took sand in a way that would show that the owner would do. Like on the Metzula. That's not a good kinyan for the Metzula. And Hichzik b'Metzula like on the Chosis. You have to make a separate chazaka, a separate kinyan on each property. Frank Gemara, but that's not true. We learned, Eini, that true, but Amar Shmuel, Machar lo Eser Sadois, the Eser Medinas. What if Reuven wants to sell Shimon a package of 10 properties, and these properties are scattered all around the world? Kivon shehichzik be'achas mehen, once the Lekech made a kinyan chazaka on one of these 10 properties, kana kulan, he will be kind them all. So if I made a chazaka on the Metzula, why am I not kind of the Chosis? If I made the chazaka on the cholzes, why am I not koina matzula? I should be able to be koina any land anywhere. Zok to Gemara, hatam hu desadna the arachatu. There, the reason why, if you make a chazaka in one property here in Toronto, you could be cutting a property in Africa, because it's all of the land is connected to one globe. But in addition to that, the kula chadet hashmishtahu. That's only if all of the land is farmland, so it's used the same way, or if all of the land is construction land. As long as all the properties that you're selling you use in the same way, a chazaka on one will be a chazaka on them all. Abul hacha. But with our two properties, the Metzula, the Choses, they're each used differently, so the chazaka that you make for one would not work for the other. The Ikad Amri, however, there was another nusach that would not make that distinction. And let's turn on to Amud Beis to see the Ikad Amri. Omar Rav, Omar Nachman, Hichzik b'cholsis kana matzula, and the box sticks in Hichzik b'matzula kana cholsis. Frank Marpshita, why is that a chiddush? We know from Shmuel, the Omar Shmuel Machala Esasadais, you make a chazak on the one, you're calling them all. Because if Sada the Aramal, so no, Malditim, I would have thought, Hasamu the Sada the Arachadu, it's one piece of land. All of the land in the world is one piece of land, and you're all doing the same thing with it. All the lands are the same tashmish. So I might have thought that chazak on one wouldn't be a good chazak on another, the mashmal that it is. So our two lashonis have two different conclusions. Either you could only be coined in multiple properties with one chazaka if all the properties have the same use, and the second lashon that we just learned is no matter what, by being coined in one property, you're coining them all. So the Rishbam fills us in with a lot of information, just in case we forgot from Cheskas Abatim. And if you remember, in Cheskas Abatim, we learned that if you want to be koina hefker land, the land of a ger that died, and you have two properties that he owned both of them, and there's a border in between, if you made a chazak on one, you're not koina the other one. So how is it that Shmuel holds that you could be koina properties all over the world, by nichsi ager, by hefker, it doesn't work. So the Rishbam reminds us that the Gemara told us the answer is very simple. By Shmuel's halacha, I'm buying it from someone. There's a dasacher smak. Someone received payment for all these properties, and someone said to you, Lech chazek ukni. That's where, by making a chazak on the one, you're cutting them all. But when you're cutting from ever, and there's no money being paid, you're just making a kinyan, there it would not work. Developing. Zog the Heilige Mishnah. What if you own a press and you want to sell a press? So what's included in the press? What utilities, what utensils, what parts are included? So the law is mocher es hayam. Yam, the Gemara is going to tell us, yam is a press basically is a flat surface with a hole in it that you put all the zaysim upon, and then you put something heavy on it to squash them, and then the oil comes out. The yam is the flat surface that all of the olives are put on. There's a mammal. Mammal is, they used to have, the Rishbam explains, again, this is the Gemara, but I'm jumping the gun over here. It would be a rock, a heavy rock with a hole in it that you could put a wooden handle into, and then you would smash the olives with them before you press them. So that's a mammal. There's a basulois. Bisulois, where the way the press would work is you would have a board that would put pressure on the olives that were sitting on the yam. What created that pressure? They had actually the following structure. They had two sideboards, and then they had a board running horizontally across with a threaded hole. Then they had a big threaded post that had the board at the bottom that would be used to crush. And then as you spun it, it moved down and it put pressure on the olives and it crushed them. Not much different than many of our vices. So you twist something that's on a long screw and that pushes down on the large board that pressed the olives. So this was on a raised horizontal board coming down to press the olives. What held it up? It wasn't suspended in midair. There are two sideboards that held this up. Those are the basulos. The basulos were the two sideboards that held up the screw device that pushed the kaira down. Avaloi mochar es avirim. Avirim, we're going to see, is the main heavy board that put pressure on the olives, didn't touch the olives. They put a small piece of plywood down, and then the pressure from the kaira pushed down on this plywood, which then evenly spread the pressure on all of the olives below. So that's what the avirim is. There's a galgal. Galgal is that screw device that lowers the beam to press. There's a kaira. The kaira is the beam itself that presses. So nochama, it includes the yam, the mammal, and the basulois, but it doesn't include the avirim and the galgal and the kaira. But if you wrote a yiter loshen in the sale contract, and you wrote, I'm selling you the base about who the chol masher b'soichai, and everything that's in it, then arei kulan nuchur, and then it includes all of these pieces. Rabbi Eliezer Eimer, I argue with the Tanakama who says it doesn't include that beam that comes down. Rather, a moichel base about mochar as a kaira, and we'll soon see the reason for this machlokes. Zok el gemara yam. What is a yam? Talafcha, and that's the flat surface that all the olives are put on. Mammal. Guess who tells us what mammal means? Omer Bava bar mammal. I wonder if that's a coincidence. The Bava bar mammal is explaining to us what a mammal is. Mafrachta. That tool I told you about, that you have a rock with a hole in it that you put a handle in and you could smash the olives. Bisulois, Rabbi Yochanan Klunzois, Shal Eres, Shemamidid Vahenes Akar. Those were those two vertical support beams that held up the horizontal beam that they screwed the press down with. Okay? Avirim are kivshi. Kivshi are the boards that sit on top of the olives directly that the press pushes down. Galgal, what is a galgal? That's chabrasa. That's that screw device that pushes down on the kaira. And the kaira is a kaira. Taner Rabbanan. Let's get more detail. Hamoicher beis abad, mocher es nesar. You're selling the beams. Now the nesar that we're talking about is what we said earlier. Those boards that you put. I'm sorry. No, nesar means they would put around the surface where all the olives were. We were afraid if you press down, some of the olives are going to fall off. So they had these nisarim that were literally like the boards in a hockey game to keep in the stuff so it shouldn't fall out. Okay, that's the nisarim of the brisa. That's how Yakovim. Yakev is like what holds the bounty, which is the flat surface that the olives are on that they're pressed on. There's a mafrechos. That's that tool that you smash with. The es harechayim. Before you would put the olives onto the press, they would want to break the skin first. So they would be a grinder. So if it's a rechayim atachtoinos, the rechayim part that was connected to the ground, avaloy al not the upper part that you banged with, which is similar to the machteshes that we had in the last Mishnah. But it was when the sale contract says, I'm selling you the base abad and everything in it, then they'll all be included. But no matter what you said, it does not include the avirim. Avirim, remember we said those were those boards that you put on top of the olives that the press presses on, that evens out the pressure. How did you get the olives to the press? You carry them in bags. Sakin are bags made out of fabric. Martzufin are bags made out of hide. You know why? If it doesn't have a kaira, which is the main weight that presses the olives, how can you call it a base abad? It's only a base abad if it has the main tool that's used in the base abad. Now let's get on to selling a bathhouse. Hamoichers hamerchas. Loy mocher es hanesarim. You know what most mikvois, you're not standing on the tile floor. They have mats, either of wood, the chavashas are made of wood, in the agura, they're made out of plastic. So we have them so you shouldn't slip. But in those days, they had those nesarim because either the floors were very dirty, and those nesarim, you stood on them so you shouldn't get so dirty, or because they used to heat the floors or the mikveh, they had in-floor heat, but they didn't use arista air to do it, so the heat sometimes got out of control. So the floors were very hot. So in order that people shouldn't burn their feet on the floor, they would have these boards that would protect their feet. Nobody there got cold feet when they were going to the mikveh. That's a safolim. Safolim are jugs of water that you would use to pour on you, to bathe with. That's a balonios. And the balonios are the towels. They're not included. And the Rashbam is goris, instead of balonios, the Rashbam is goris vilois. But it means the towels. Bisman she'amar lahi v'chol masha b'soicha, but if when you sell the merchant, you say everything inside it, then arei kulun l'chud. But benkach u'benkach, it does not include le'mochers ha'meguray shalmayim. If you have big tanks of water, those would not be included. And if you had a woodshed, it wouldn't include that wood. And the Rashbam explains, because these aren't kalim of the base of merchants. Wood you could use for your house. Wood you need for fuel anywhere. Gerada, it's also used for a mikveh. But it's not something that directly is designed to service the base of merchants. And the same thing with the tanks of water. Everyone needs tanks of water. Gerada, base of merchants also needs tanks of water. But tanks of water aren't something that are specific to merchants. Tanu Rabbanan. Hamoichers hamerchats. If you sell a merchats, macher as base on the sar. So even though the Mishnah says it doesn't include those boards, but there was a closet where they used to lift those boards up. I guess they used to wash the mikveh every day. So they would lift up those boards and put them into a closet. It includes the closet because that's an integral part of the merchants. The boards themselves might not be included, but the closet to house them are. There's base how you come in, and the house where they kept, it would get very hot, so they gave out turbines so people's heads shouldn't get too hot. And the turbines were not included in the sale, but the closet where the turbines were kept was part of the sale. There's base hasafolim, and the closet where they kept the jugs of water. There's base havilois, and the towel cabinet. All those cabinets are included. Aviloyas nesaranatzman, but it doesn't include the wood for the floor lining. V'lo yikavanatman, it doesn't include those turbines. V'lo safalim atman, it doesn't include the jugs of water. V'lo vilois atman, it doesn't include the towels either. But it was mancha malahi v'chol masha b'soicha. But if the contract is inclusive, and it said it even includes everything in the base of merchot, then harei kulan mechurin. The R will be included. But benkach loy mochar loy esabreicha isamisavkosh loy mayim. The larger containers that in the Mishnah they call them megurais, they would not be included. And let's go on to Amar Aleph. Bein b'yemoisachama. Even in yemoisachama, where there aren't much water in them anyway, so you might think it's not significant, and it would be bottle to the merchot. Zokt to the Braise, they're not bottle. Turning on to Amar Aleph. B'yemoisachama as well. V'loy beis kinus ha'etzim. The woodshed is not included, no matter what. But if he used an even more inclusive loshin, he uses the word based on tashmisha, which Rashi said, which the response is l'tfuyasa. It's a really descriptive extra language, which would mean to include more items in the sale. If he said then kulan mechurin, then all of these things are also included, even the wood thing. Someone once told his friend, Beis Sabat, I'm selling you a press, the Chol Tashmishav, and all of the Tashmishav on the. So we just learned that Chol Tashmishav really means to include a lot of extra stuff, even more than the Chol Tashmishav. So this particular press had a little variety store in it. There were these stores there that primarily sold oil, bread and wine. But they also they had sesame seeds spread out to dry because they were going to use them to extract oil from them. So the question is, are these stores included in the sale of the Beis Habad? Also, the Kamed Rabbi Yosef. Of course, normally you wouldn't think it's included, but since he said the Chalta Shmishov, it's hard to say that maybe that's a very inclusive lashon. So they came to Rabbi Yosef, and normally I think it's a brayso we learned. Like I'm a Beis Hamerchat, like we just learned. Tanina, Mama Beis Hamerchat, Chalta Shmishov Ani Marchala, Hare Kol Mechurin. So Rabbi Yosef compared it to what we just learned about the Beis Hamerchat. Amalei Abaye said, "Vatani Reb Chia ain't kula mechurin." Reb Chia quoted a brayso in this case by a Beis Habad stores that it would have been included. Alamar Vashi Chazina. It depends on what he wrote. You Amalei Beis Habad b'chalta shmisha, and the ilam etzuna, and he actually showed them, outlined the borders of the perimeter of what he's selling, and inside that perimeter it included this little store. Then kani will be kani. But if not, it wouldn't be kani. There's a very important Rishbam on here that's going to cause a problem, and I'll just tell you what the problem is, which we'll deal with tomorrow, and that is, we just learned, the Rishbam said, that if I give you the borders, then it includes everything within the borders, even that store that wasn't really related to the Beis Habad. The problem is, we had a case a couple of days ago where I'm selling my field. Now, my field is a big field, and on one side, let's on the east side of my field, I'm bordering with Levi. And I decided that I want to sell the east side of my field. So I tell a guy, I'm selling you the east side of my field, and in your new purchase, on your east side, you're going to have Levi, and on your west side, you're going to have me. So the Gemara had a shaila, how much of my field am I selling? And the shaila is, am I selling you the bare minimum field, or am I selling you half my field? So the Gemara said the Maskana that if I tell you I'm selling you this field, and your new neighbors are going to be Levi and myself, and I stick in these extra words, the alin mitrina'a, I actually speak out those extra words, then I mean to sell them half my field. But if I don't speak out those words, the alin mitrina'a, then I don't mean to include everything. The Rishbam over here, when he touches our Gemara about Ilam Mitrina, he says Beferish, you didn't say the words for Ilam Mitrina, like in the previous Gemara that I just quoted. Rather, you just showed him the borders. And nevertheless, over here the Rishbam says, here it is kind of everything. So the question that we need to ask is, why, by the case of the field, was it necessary to say Ilam Mitrina? And why in this case, it's enough if I just show you the borders. Why don't you say that there's a concept where sometimes a person, when he just tells you the perimeter, he's including more than the actual sale because that's an easier perimeter to describe. So Mitchum, tomorrow we will look more into that shaila and hopefully we'll be able to have a teretz. I want to wish everybody a good tavach, a good best tavach. We should have a simcha tavach, and we should come into El. They're going to take us back, and he should rescue all the hostages and make shalom in Israel and all of the world, and we should be zeichen to the Gula Shleim.